Hello and welcome to the Classics Book Club. This is a place to come and delve into all those classics you always wanted to read. Today we will be chatting about one of the all-time classics, the Eustace Diamonds by Anthony Trollope. I'd like to firstly welcome Susannah Fullerton as our resident queen of the classics. Susannah has been president of the Jane Austen Society of Australia for the past 19 years. She's also patron of the Kipling Society of Australia, a founding member of the New South Wales Dickens Society and of the Australian Bronte Association, and a member of the Dylan Thomas Society of Australia. Susannah is Sydney's best-known lecturer on classic novels, and she lectures regularly at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Welcome, Susannah.
Hi.
I'd also like to welcome book club member Sarah Burns, who's the president of the Australian Bronte Association.
Hello.
And of course, we'd also like to welcome back all our book club members watching our Hangout on air. Don't forget to pop your questions into the comments and we'll do our best to get to them during the Hangout. And now to the book. This is the story of Lizzie Greystock, who manages to attract the attention of the wealthy Sir Florian Eustace. After a brief marriage producing a male heir, Sir Florian becomes disillusioned with his bride, who is a liar and a spendthrift, and he's coming to him with a bag full of debts she forgot to mention before her marriage. Sir Florian, not a well man, dies within a year of his marriage, and he leaves Lizzie, a wealthy young widow, a castle in Scotland, £4,000 a year, and a diamond necklace worth £10,000. The necklace becomes the lead character in the drama which unfolds. Susannah, over to you.
Well, the Eustace Diamonds was published in 1872, and it's the third novel in what's known as the Palliser series of novels by Anthony Trollope, and this is his political series. So it starts with a novel called Can You Forgive Her? The second one in the series is Phineas Finn, and then comes the Eustace Diamonds. So some of the characters mentioned in the novel appear in those two earlier novels, and they appear in the three novels that complete the Palliser series. Anthony Trollope was actually the first English writer to use recurring characters in his fiction. No other English writer had done that before Trollope. So he was a real groundbreaker in having characters like Lady Glencora and Lady Linlithgow and Mr. Camperdown popping up regularly in the course of the various novels. This, of course, is a book about the diamonds and whether Lizzie is entitled to keep them. So let's begin by talking about Lizzie herself, because she is a very memorable character. Anthony Trollope loved the works of William Makepeace Thackeray, and I think you can see the influence of Becky Sharp on Lizzie Eustace. She's, like Becky, a bad mother, she's a liar, she's a schemer, she's ambitious. I don't think she's as intelligent as Becky Sharp. But how did you respond to Lizzie in the course of the novel? Do you want her to keep hold of the diamonds, or do you want her to give them up? Do you like her or loathe her, or are you just fascinated by the manipulations throughout the course of the novel? What do you think, Letitia?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I didn't think she was an intelligent sort of heroine, and so, you know, I just was barracking for her to get caught. It was terrible, you know. Through the whole book, I wanted her to get her comeuppance because, you know, I felt like she duped so many people, and there was just nothing honourable about her, or at least intelligently, you know, mischievous sort of thing. So I must admit, I wasn't a huge Lizzie fan.
She's not a very good liar. A lot of her lies seem really pointless, and you think, why is she telling that fib? It's not actually getting her anywhere.
Well, she wasn't even a good scheming liar, you know. It wasn't sort of, you know, sometimes I just felt like she was bumbling through things, and it frustrated me. It was like, you can't even be a really good evil person.
Yeah. How did you find her, Sarah? A horrible villain, or did you?
I don't think she was horrible. I didn't like her. I think she definitely wasn't as clever as Becky Sharp or as interesting. But I couldn't see why she couldn't have the diamonds at first. But then I didn't trust her not to sell them or do something.
Taste copies made.
Her obstinance, you know, she wasn't going to give them up to that family, and I mean, all the business in the beginning of before she even gets married. Her diamonds end up at the pawn shop, you know, and she had some lovely things. So she was very bejeweled and loved her jewellery, but she knew how to get rid of them too. So no, I didn't like her.
She surrounds herself with a lot of props, doesn't she? I mean, you feel that the poetry is all for effect. She learns off by heart the lines that she thinks she can best use in certain situations. She tries to be a drama queen with fainting at the right moments, using her poetry, flinging herself into people's arms, shrieking and wailing. She's just so full of acting, but generally it's rather bad acting throughout.
Well, that scene with Lady Fawn with the Bible, and she put her hand on the table, and I mean, the Bible was a good place to hide things, but I don't know if she used it for much else.
And also, I love the languishing a portrait castle with Byron. You know, it was all very dramatic.
Well, she was looking for a corsair, and of course, Byron's poem, "The Corsair," is read by everybody, and it's really good. That's all about a youth who was rejected by society because of his actions and his behaviour. In fact, Lizzie might have been looking for a corsair, but she was the corsair.
Yes, yeah, and becomes more and more rejected as the novel goes on. I mean, you know, she does at times gain sympathy and interest from people like Lady Glencora, Lord Fawn, who then backtracks as fast as he can go. So by the end, she's quite an isolated figure in many ways, isn't she? The end of the novel.
Absolutely, and she's sort of left with McNulty, who doesn't like her very much. Paid to sort of endure her, and son that you never hear of or see, or you know, is more of a line or a prop for people to feel sorry about her. So yeah, it's quite fascinating how alone she is for someone who has always been surrounded by all this drama in the first sort of parts of the book.
She stirs the drama up. Now, Trollope was a writer who really loved subplots, and he was really quite addicted to subplots. And this novel, of course, has got two subplots. It's got the Lucy Morris-Frank Greystock romance, which sort of also brings in the Fawn family, who are rather wonderful characters. And then there's Mrs. Carbuncle and Lucinda Roanoke and Sir George and all of those other characters connected with that. So let's have a look at the Lucy Morris and Frank Greystock subplot. Is Lucy too good to be true, and does she gain sympathy from us as readers?
Oh my God, I wanted to just throw something at her. She was too much. She was too insipid. She was,
yes,
you know, the backbone that you kind of feel that she thinks she has is more this timid sort of, you know, inability to kind of even just confront Frank when he's treating her so badly, and I just find it really frustrating. Even when she stood up to Lord Fawn when he was speaking badly about Frank, it was just almost an obstinate child rather than having, you know, clear sort of arguments about why she was upset, and I found her very, very frustrating.
But she is in a difficult position, isn't she? I mean, she is a governess. She's in the employment of the Fawn family, and I guess standing up to people or asserting herself is rather tricky. Even though they're nice employers to her, it's still she's in a difficult position.
Her employers were always willing to have her back, and even when the whole Frank Greystock marriage went badly, they were willing to look after her and treat her as a daughter. And the one person she goes and attacks is one of the Fawn family. Like, the one time she stands up for herself, it's actually to the detriment of her position. So it was just really, it was like, you know, like, these are the people that can save you if this guy, you know, doesn't marry you. So it's very interesting.
Does she get what she deserves in Frank Greystock? Because he's not a very worthy or admirable character, is he? I mean, he flirts with Lizzie. He thinks of dumping Lucy. He's duplicitous. He's not going to make her a great husband. Do you think, Sarah? How did you respond to Frank? A bit of a weak fellow?
I took offence when he said when there's a reference to him marrying her would be a sacrifice. You know, he loved her, but he shouldn't be marrying her because she didn't have any money and she wasn't of the right class, or basically she couldn't help him, and it would be a sacrifice. But he did love her. You know, that was the sort of
in his own rather weak way, I think. Yeah,
I didn't like that. And his attraction to Lizzie, they were cousins, which today we find that quite strange and uncomfortable. But he's flattered by her, and I find that a bit, shows his weakness as well, that he gets distracted. But I think he's a good person in his law. He's trying to be a good lawyer, politician.
Well, his parents don't want him to marry Lucy either, because young men like Frank needed brides with money.
Yeah.
So that comes through very clearly. Yeah.
But it's interesting that he's the only character in this book who apologises when he did something wrong.
Yes.
The only one who apologised to Lucy for his behaviour. No matter how bad it was, because I'm not saying you should have taken him back, but at least he had some semblance of
There's hope for him yet.
Yes. Actually, who knows how he went on, but yeah, I thought that at least that was one saving grace.
Don't you think Lord Fawn is a fabulous comic character in the novel? With that mother and all those unmarried sisters at home, and he needs to marry money, and he's so useless and dithery and wet as a character. But Trollope makes great comic use of Lord Fawn. I mean, even his name, we laugh at him.
Well, I love the letters that he writes Lizzie when he's trying to sort of scramble out of the marriage.
Yes.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Well, he went in there too quickly. I mean, that was amazing how quickly he jumped in. I mean, he didn't even know her, but that didn't seem to matter. On paper, she looked good.
Yes.
And quite pretty, as we keep being told.
Yes. Defined as pretty with 4,000 a year and Portray Castle. I always loved how they clumped that together as they described every new character.
that gardener at the castle. He's
wonderful.
They have such trouble with him.
He didn't trust Frank either.
Yes, he doesn't trust anybody. Now, what about the Mrs. Carbuncle plot? I personally find that the least appealing part of the novel. It is a novel I love, but I get a bit impatient with Lucinda and Mrs. Carbuncle and Lord George de Bruce Carruthers and Sir Griffin, and not one of them is an admirable character. And I do find Lucinda a rather puzzling character. Is she gay? Is that why she hates the idea of marriage so much?
Such an odd little story that weaves itself in and out of the scenes from when they go hunting up in Scotland, and then when Lizzie stays at Mrs. Carbuncle's house, and it's just very odd. I think you're right. I think there's this allusion to her being disgusted by men, which is what she says at the end when she has her breakdown and doesn't marry. But yeah, I think that's potentially what he's alluding to, because nothing else is really said that explains her behaviour.
Or does she just so hate the idea of sort of being sold in marriage, which, of course, was what happened to so many Victorian young ladies. They were sold in marriage.
But the thing was, she was admired by so many men, like they say that all the time. So she was disgusted by this particular man, but then you'd think, well, marry one of the others who are so besotted with you.
Yes.
So it's quite interesting. It felt more like she was repelled by men in general.
Subplot, isn't it? I mean, Sir Griffin seems to want a sort of wild woman that he can tame and control, and there's almost a sense of brutality coming through there. It's a rather disturbing subplot, I feel, in the novel.
And it's interesting that he only wants her when she starts to reject him and refuses to marry him, is when he sort of redoubles his efforts to say how much he loves her.
More interesting then.
Yeah. Now, Trollope came from a family that had many lawyers in it, but when he wrote this book, he actually wrote to a top London lawyer asking for advice about the situation that he had created in the novel. Are the jewels part of the definite inheritance, or are they paraphernalia or a bauble? And Trollope got a sound legal opinion that he must have paid for while he was writing this book. So he knew he was getting his legal facts right. I think he's a wonderful writer on the subject of money and property, and it really comes through in this novel. The diamonds are something that Lizzie wants to hold on to, but they should be going to her son. And does she own them? And then are they stolen, or is she pretending to have them stolen? There are all these different legal issues within the book. So did you enjoy the legal characters in the novel? And
Turtle Dove.
Turtle Dove.
I did like Mr. Camperdown was sort of a hero for me in this book. You know, he was the only one who seemed to have some moral integrity, and he had I don't know, he had a focus, you know, a reason to be doing the things he was doing. He had a real pride in serving the Eustace family, and I kind of felt sorry for him in the end that he didn't get her.
Yeah, he's outmaneuvered.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting the advice he gets from Turtle Dove, and the definition of an heirloom, or you know what, and he found that he'd been advising his clients wrongly, and he felt quite embarrassed about that.
Yes.
What is an heirloom, or is it a bauble, or a chattel, or a paraphernalia? You know, and who gets what and when and how is. I found that really interesting in all the precedents. And Turtle Dove was another stubborn one, in that they said even if he was wrong, you didn't argue with him. Like, he was so stubborn, he was always right.
Yes.
I really I like the ending when they can't get Lizzie, basically because she just feigns illness and stays up in her castle in Scotland. So I thought that was a really interesting indictment on the legal system, that someone could so easily
get away with it,
outmaneuver the system.
Yeah, the law. Now, you mentioned earlier the relationship between the cousins, Frank and Lizzie, and, you know, romance between cousins is something that modern readers perhaps find a bit distasteful today, or certainly not so appealing. But I think far less appealing in this novel is the anti-Semitism that sadly was part of Victorian society. And it does come through with the character Mr. Emilius, who could be Jewish. It's not proven, but the anti-Semitic comments are a distressing part of the novel, I think, to read, and for modern readers, something that does date the book a bit. So I think it's a fantastic book, but I do find it rather distressing reading those anti-Semitic comments by Trollope. Although in some of his other novels, he gives very sympathetic and lovely portraits of Jewish characters. So he's picking up on the current prejudices of Victorian society when he does that, isn't he?
Yeah,
I agree. It was difficult to read that, you know, the hooked nose, Emilius, the
makes you cringe.
hair. Yeah, especially when he kept saying he had greasy hair and things like that. It was just, it was really interesting to note what was acceptable at the time.
Mr. Emilius has a big part to play in the next novel in the series, which is Phineas Redux, and he does not come to a good end. So, you know, Trollope obviously wants him to be something of a villain in the piece. But I think also the position of women is very interesting in this novel. We get a real range from aristocratic Lady Glencora through to Patience Crabstick the maid, women living rather precariously, like Mrs. Carbuncle, whose husband is nowhere to be seen, clearly having an affair with Lord George. You know, all the different women that come up to Scotland, the London women, Lady Linlithgow. So I think Trollope is just one of the best Victorian novelists when it comes to sympathetic portrayals of women and the sorts of difficulties they're facing in Victorian society. You know, you don't have the money, you don't have the husband, you don't have the title, you've got to live by your wits. So even
when you do have the money and the title and the property, as Lizzie did, you can get into all sorts of trouble if you're pursued by the wrong sort of man as well.
Mm.
And that description of Lady Fawn and her family, the poor rich, that comes out. They might have the title and the position, but they don't have any money.
Yes. And what is going to happen to all of those unmarried girls if they can't get husbands? It's not an
Very isolated too, which I think Lucy Morris being there, she goes from her own home to their home, so she's not getting a worldly experience. They're quite isolated because they've never heard of Lizzie, or they don't know about her. What the married sister has, she knows they're all about it, and she's going to tell everybody.
Well, I think we can all agree that there is no hero or heroine in this novel.
No, there's no hero or heroine.
But it's certainly...
Trollope does insert a lovely little joke. Now, Trollope once tried to write a play, and it was called The Noble Jilt, and it was turned down by every theatre that he sent it to. It was a truly dreadful play, evidently. He later came to see it was very badly written. But he laughs at himself because he has the characters in this novel going to see a play on the London stage called The Noble Jilt. And, of course, there's a lot of jilting taking place in this novel. You know, Frank thinks of jilting Lucy, and Lord Fawn jilts Lizzie, and Lucinda jilts Sir Griffin. So he's having a nice little joke at his own expense, but he's also, I think, highlighting one of the themes of the book, which is jilting and the dishonesty and unfaithfulness that can come with that. And throughout all of this series, we get real contrasts with Plantagenet Palliser and his wife, Lady Glencora. Now, that's made clear in the first book in the series that it's not a very happy marriage, but they've stuck with each other and somehow they make it work. And for Trollope, Plantagenet Palliser was the epitome of a moral, good Englishman. And I think most of the men in this novel fall woefully short in comparison with Plantagenet Palliser, or Planty Pal, as he's often called.
I think that's definitely, you know, ones we're going to have to keep reading in the series. I'm looking forward to reading the next one.
And there's a wonderful television adaptation, which they did, the BBC did in the 1970s. And Lizzie Eustace was acted by a woman called Sarah Badell. Lord Fawn is acted by Derek Jacobi. There's some wonderful actors, and those scenes with the diamonds and Lizzie, you know, hiding the diamonds and at her castle in Scotland are beautifully done in that film adaptation. So if you have enjoyed the book, do watch the film series called The Pallisers. It really is really fantastic.
That sounds fabulous. I am definitely going to be picking up a copy of that. I think it'll be fabulous. Sarah?
So even though there were no particularly admirable characters in this novel, did you enjoy the Eustace Diamonds?
Oh, yes, can't put it down. Couldn't put it down.
It is a really good read, isn't it? And Trollope, I think, might have failed as a playwright, but in many ways he structures this novel like a really good drama. He's got lots of great dialogue, he's got change of scene, he's got villainous behaviour, he's got theft, he's got broken engagements, he's got love affairs that might or might not happen. It is a very, very well-structured Trollope novel, and generally critics regard it as one of his finest books. I think it's a fabulous book that really repays rereading because there's so much in it. And like her or loathe her, Lizzie Eustace is a character you really can't forget very easily. So
definitely up there.
Not Becky Sharp, but you know she's still interesting, and if you watch her or see her digging that hole deeper and deeper, you wonder how is she going to get out of this one.
Well, I think we all have to agree that it's a book you can't put down. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the Classics Book Club today. Thank you, Susannah, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all our Classic Book Club Hangout clubbers out there who are watching us today. Our next book club will be on the 23rd of June, where we'll be reading The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. So we look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you so much.